Okay, our second speaker for the evening is Ben Leppier, and you haven't got a clue what love is, right? Something like that. You know what it's like. We all know what love is, don't we? And kind of we do, and we don't sometimes. And anyway, I thought it would be great if Ben came along and had a bit of a chinwag about it. We were just talking, he's going to have a theme tune going soon, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. But Ben Leppier, thank you very much.
Cool. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. It's a strange moment when you're thinking about this presentation, and then you get to that point where John does that bit, and the whole room's focusing on you. Very unusual experience, and you can't prepare for it however many times you do it. So, today I was presenting the first couple of lines of this presentation to my 2.5-year-old daughter, Florence, and she was kind of nodding and happily listening. And about one sentence in, I thought this was going really well. You know, these guys are going to be hooked tonight. Laughing like that. And then she said, "Can I go and get my pushchair? Can I bring my pushchair into the room?" So she wasn't as engaged as what I thought she was. And I told Kerry about it. And she said, "Well, hey, you don't know what kind of questions are going to come tonight. So that might be one of them." I've already had it today, so it really is a privilege to be here with you guys. I spoke here about 2.5 years ago about personal development, how to be successful, how to make money, how to become somebody that you're really not, rather than be accepted for who you really are. I thought I was in a good place, but I wasn't. I didn't know that at the time. Didn't matter how good a job I did in an environment like this, didn't matter how well the words came together on the night, didn't matter how well I networked beforehand, didn't matter how many people I got on the chair shouting rah rah. I mean, I was never going to be as tall as Tony Robbins anyway. But yeah, I was attracted to being somebody who wasn't me, because I thought that I could become worth something if I was somebody else. I didn't feel worth much at all. Made money in property, lost a lot of money in property, near on bankrupt myself. Made money in business, had my own personal development program, wrote my own book, was an accomplished public speaker. Really not anymore. Good. I kind of ran out of things to do next, to be honest. And it was scary because there was nothing else for me to go and pretend to be. I'd already pretended to be a million different versions of Ben, and I still wasn't happy. And I was engaged to be married, and I still had no clue who the hell I was. So this presentation tonight, in the very short time I have, I'm just not even going to be able to scratch the surface. The subject of unconditional love. Of feeling completely, entirely accepted for who you really are, with no exception. The bits of you that you really don't like, the bits that you want to deny really exist. Keep in the closet, the lies you want to hide away from, pretend they really never happened. Yep, you all know what I'm talking about. The mistakes you made, that part of you that you just really wished wasn't there. Just force it, Tony says. Force it as best you can out of you. Just pretend to be it. Fake it until you make it, right? We've all heard that. What, fake being somebody else until I feel worthy to be that person? just doesn't make sense. But it did make sense to me. So I'd get up every morning and rah-rah and jump around in front of some pictures I'd put on the wall. I didn't know I was going to say this. And I would get myself motivated to manifest what I wanted via the medium of law of attraction and focus on pictures. And guess what? All the pictures were just of, 90% of the pictures were just about material, tangible, can see, feel and touch possessions. Stuff that would hopefully bring something to me. And then perhaps I could maybe derive a sense of feeling worth something. The world grossly misunderstands what love really is. Really, we do. And I've got a take on that tonight, and I know we've all got an idea of what love really is, so is a risky subject in 30 minutes. And I'm not here to make you wrong, and you're completely within your rights to disagree with what comes out of my mouth. I just said to John, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth until it does, so it's very exciting for all of us.
Love it already.
So, I'm just here to open your mind up. And if I just say one thing that resonates with you and that helps you on the next step of your journey, wherever that is, wherever you're going with that, then I've done okay. I don't need you to get it. Really, I don't. I don't need you to accept what I say. And you don't even need to accept me. You can think I'm a complete twerp, which some of you do, I can see in the faces. But you don't need to accept me, how cool. You think I'm a complete asshole, whatever. This is just a gift to come and talk about what you've been grossly missold. Not only do we misunderstand what unconditional love really is, but we misunderstand what happiness really is. That's what I wanted, really. When I had all that stuff on the dream board, I thought if I acquire that stuff, I'm going to feel, how do we think we're going to feel? Feel really happy. I spoke at a property investors and entrepreneurs networking event about 1 month ago. Well, perhaps to the day, actually, because it's Tuesday today, isn't it? And we wrote up the desires and the goals and the dreams of almost everybody in the room as quickly as I could write. And it was be successful, be wealthy, be rich, earn a sense of respect, all the stuff related to that feeling of success. And I said, but for all this stuff you want to acquire, you have an idea of how you're going to feel when you acquire it. And that feeling is a feeling of happiness, or feeling happier, right? Who wants to make more money in the room? Yeah. Who wants to be more successful? Who wants to be entirely and utterly accepted for every single ounce of who they are, with no exception? Yeah. So my childhood wasn't physically abusive by any means. Most of the work that I apply now is based on the work of Dr. Greg Bear. I've got some books here. I've only got 5. That's the truth, actually. I haven't just got some at home and only bought 5 to pretend that there's a short supply. I'm not that smart to do that, anyway. But yeah, my childhood was in a home where Greg says, if there's no love at home, how many parents in the room? A big portion, yeah. If there's no love in the home, that has the effect of traumatizing the child, even when there's no physical abuse. There just have to be emotional abuse between the parents in unloving and regular exchanges to cause a real problem for the child. Every single one of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Greg says there's perhaps 1% of the world's population that have actually been unconditionally loved. I trust his numbers. Now, my vision might be skewed because I help people who want to know more about this stuff. So every single person I meet and who comes across my path, I'm there to help. But I trust his numbers. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. Way more experience than me. So my childhood was, anybody know what Chinese water torture is? Slightly different to Japanese. It's more public in movies, Japanese water torture. Like the bag over the head and they tip the water bucket over them when they're led down in a concentration camp, and it's difficult to breathe. So you're kind of suffocating, choking and drowning. That's Japanese water torture. That's tricky. I've never experienced it. Mine was more like the Chinese water torture, which is you're kind of sat in some kind of structure, and above your head is a big tank of water with just a small enough hole to drip through onto your forehead. And the water drips, drips, drips for a long enough period of time that the water starts to break away at the skin. And the water continues to penetrate the skin, and because of the constant supply of water, the skin hasn't really got time to heal, and it starts to become unbearably painful. Which is how, I don't know how many people I'm talking to in the room right now, or who get exactly what I'm saying, that could be what your childhood was like. Because every time there was an unloving exchange between two parents, and it could just be, oh, you haven't paid the bills again. How many times have I got to tell you to do this? You're drunk again. Why are you home late from golf again? Why are you not taking responsibility for my happiness like you said you would when we got married? How loved did we feel when those kind of exchanges were going on? None. When we're in fear and angry, we just suck any life and love out of the room. We all know that stuff. And there are the drips. Every single day. Now it's tricky with childhood because you kind of remember it so badly. You can't really remember much at all. We just, on the whole, know it wasn't great. Now our parents did the best they could. Absolutely, categorically. And the reason why I'm drawing attention to this information is to help you get clarity around the way that you see the world. Most of us are looking at the world and it's upside down, where we rarely see the real information in front of us. I just couldn't resist that. I can see this man. I can see him. When we see an event, we have a lens of our history and childhood, of our fear, pain and experiences. We rarely see the event. We're almost constantly reacting to events, rarely choosing to respond. Now there are two states. One of them's love and one of them's fear. And if you're not finding yourself in unconditional love very often, 99% Greg anticipates of the population aren't, then you're spending a lot of your time in fear. And you will find that you live life in a way where you're reacting from event to event to event. Now I'm starting to get that look from people who are thinking, is this bullshit? Can I just switch off at this point? Because he's said enough and he's an interesting, weird kind of guy, but he's from Bristol, so perhaps I should stick with it. So I'm just making that point to re-engage you if I have lost you, because this is perhaps the most important information you're ever going to hear. Now, you might not be able to hear. Why? Because perhaps the pain that you're in right now, the emotional pain you're in, is not excruciating enough for you to be able to listen. I'm not criticising not any person in this room. I'm just saying perhaps this is what's really true for you. Because it was really true for me. Really true. And I just could not find a way to fill the emptiness inside. Didn't matter how much money I earned. I had a really nice house, a beautiful fiancé, young daughter, personal development program. I helped change hundreds of lives through that program. I had like a small group thing, get business people, investors into the environment, get them to show up once a month, every single month, and they're held accountable. So if they would lie about why they weren't taking the action they said they wanted to take, it was difficult to show up every month for the same people and lie. You can only kind of lie a few times. So if they wanted to continue to lie, they just wouldn't show up again. So that was their choice. So Greg says, in the absence of unconditional love. Now, what's his definition of unconditional love? Because that's really important, right? Because we've all got, as John said, we all know what love is. Okay, cool. Now, there is a part of this that would be helpful if there was a structure in place to wrap around the next 15 minutes of content. Do you believe 15 minutes already? Real love, Greg says. calls it real love. We could just call it unconditional love, but he's just called it real love because it's real. You can almost touch it. The ability to care for somebody else's happiness without wanting anything from them in return.
Beautiful.
I'm going to say that again.
Yeah.
The ability, my wife's generously written it down for me so I don't forget. The ability to care for someone's happiness without wanting anything in return. Now you yes group people, oh you're just so sweet to look at. You're just so open and the best you can honest, and you care about the happiness of other people. You really do. It's really easy to love you. It's really easy to care about your happiness. It is easy. I know a lot of you disbelieve that. It's interesting, isn't it? Who knows what's going to happen next? Great, thank you. If you just wait long enough, you get exactly what you need. This lady, what's your name, madam? Christine. Christine said, wait until we get nasty. Yes. Unconditional love. The ability to care for someone's happiness when they're being nasty and mean and just generally downright inconvenient and horrible. What about our kids when they're just being a pain in the ass and it's just been a bad day for you and you're doing the best you can to sit on your hands and nail your tongue to a desk so you don't shout at them again because all they've heard is no for the last 3 weeks. And you've got to be really careful how often you say no to your kids because it becomes so regular that they just don't really listen much anymore. How do they know? To just explain to a kid of 2, 1.5, the real reasons and the risks associated with what choices they're making in that moment, just lights them up to talk to them like an adult. Changes the whole thing. Real love just works in my life like you just wouldn't believe. Like there is no anger in my house. Occasionally there's fear and confusion between Kerry and I, but we tell the truth about it as soon as we can see it happening. There's nothing that isn't between us. Complete connection, complete vulnerability and emotional exposure. Emotionally naked. Now, I know almost every single person in this room is terrified to go to that place. It's a risk to say stuff like that because as soon as I kind of tell you something and you're not completely open, some of you are going to shut down. But it's kind of worth the risk for some people who are willing to listen. Because some of you aren't going to. And that's cool with me, really. You can see that. That's cool with me. But yes, madam, thank you. Loving somebody when they're annoying, disruptive, and they're not caring about your happiness not one bit. That's hard to do. But what if there were a way? What if there was a way? Now, I don't mean be a doormat and just accept anything the world throws at you. Quite the contrary. There's just a way. There's a way to be loving. I'm talking about happiness here, right? There are 3 really important principles to find real happiness as Greg's found them. He's worked with, he's worked with so many married couples and individuals that he's added up over 1 million life years of experience. The guy knows what he's talking about. There are loads of free resources at reallove.com, tons of videos if you want to just go and see some more information about this. And I have to mention that I have 2 Real Love groups, one on a Monday and one on a Wednesday for free. There's a £3 voluntary donation, right, Tim? At my house in Brislington in Bristol. And I'll explain what we do there by the time I get to the end, hopefully. So, the ability to care for the happiness of another person without wanting anything in return. It's really, really tough to do. Especially when you're feeling afraid and angry. Especially when you don't really trust that there's someone else in the world that really cares about you. Because we've got to have that. Otherwise there's just tricks and tips galore to be able to love your children by using some kind of strategy and quick fixes. There's no end of stuff. I've even written about it. Whatever. But what about getting what you need so that problem doesn't even arise? What if there's a source outside of your relationship that you could go to connect with, that you trust cares about your happiness with no exception? No exception, completely unconditional. how would that change things? I was having a wonderful conversation with a lady earlier on, and she said, hey, let's talk about relationships. And I said, okay, cool, let's talk about relationships. She wants to find the right guy. And I said, yeah, good luck. That's not implying that she's not worth it. Just how many times do we try relationships? And when we've all fallen in love, who's fallen in love here? Everyone's fallen in love. How long did it take you to fall out of love? 6 months? Yeah, thank you, Sam. Got an honest one here. I was looking for the honest ones. 6 months, you fell out of love. If we fall in love, at some point we're going to fall out of love. I haven't got time to go into why that happens tonight. But I said, what if? No, I said, it sounds like I'm lying now because I've changed what I said. I said, why do we go into a relationship? Why do we? Because of what we want to get. Don't we? Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, I've got a lot to give too. Yeah, I get that. Predominantly, the reason why we embark on a pursuit of a relationship is because we're going to get something from it. Right?
Yeah.
Tell me that's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah? So, this is tricky because most of you agreed with me, generally. This is tricky because what's the other person doing? They're coming to get something too. And things just conspire that at that moment in time, what you can get from each other is just perfectly matched. Oh. What's more, you just lie the shit out of who you are. Put your best foot forward. You've heard that, right? Put your best foot forward when you go on your date, in a business relationship, even. And there's a really big problem with putting your best foot forward. Because you've got another foot. And it really stinks. It really stinks, right? And then your new relationship partner doesn't find out about your stinky foot until you've been living together for 3 years. And they think, if he does that one more time. So you're feeling lied to from day one. How can you trust? How can you trust someone who's lied to you? No one knows how to trust. At the meeting I spoke at last month, I said, let's just touch on trust. Trusting someone cares about you. I said, imagine if I did a survey of relationships UK-wide, and I asked each partner, how well do you trust your significant other? And a woman beautifully piped up in the audience and said, yeah, but trust them with what? That's exactly the point, honey. That's not trust. That's like a bit of trust for the stuff I'm willing to risk. Which is how much of who you are. 25%? Where's the rest of you? It's still on that stinky foot. It's cool, huh? How are you feeling about the content? Cool, yeah. Got a risk of being too entertaining. Now I bring lightheartedness to this stuff because I don't network much anymore. I'm a difficult pill to swallow. And when I say I help people deal with emotional pain, you wouldn't believe how quickly that ends the conversation. to make sure I'm not lying, you could just do that for fun. And you just check your watch when you say it, because they won't be around for long. So for the marketeers, I really need some help, you know? I just need to perhaps phrase it in a slightly different way. We're on, we've got like 4 minutes left. So, yeah, I've literally only got those books, like £10 a piece, apart from the Real Love and Parenting, because that book just rocks. That's £15. But because I'm feeling incredibly generous, you can have it for a £10 or £2. If you don't buy a book, I really don't care. Just for you. I've got one of each of Greg's series, and they're just, not going to swear, brilliant. The Three-Legged Stool. So it has to be in balance. You have to get the love that you need first, or else the whole thing goes to shit. If you spent most of your life in fear as a consequence of not getting the unconditional love that you desperately needed as a kid, you can't love anybody else. Now I've heard, love yourself, right? Love yourself. If we knew how to do that, none of us would really need a relationship. Now, I get some of the monk fraternity who live on a mountain somewhere, tropical, not tropical, on a mountain, is it, Ben? Somewhere remote, would be able to teach us how to love oneself by staring at a wall all day. Now, I'm not discrediting their practice, not one bit, but I don't imagine many people piss them off when they're looking at the wall all day. I don't imagine they have many people in front of them when they're driving to work in the morning. Beep, beep. I don't imagine they have much guff from newspapers. I imagine their life's pretty straightforward. I imagine it's pretty easy to find a sense of happiness when you are that physically remote. But how does that help you guys? Come and see S Group on the way up here. So, if you haven't experienced unconditional love, can I have a show of hands if you're willing? How many of you are sure that you were not unconditionally loved as a child? Would you be willing to raise your hand? We're not unconditionally loved. Wow, cool. Some people thinking, some people quite sure. Cool. And I'm not going to single anyone out. It's just interesting to see where we're at for my monstrous 3.5 minutes. So what does Greg say? Like, really, I'm just scratching the surface. I'm almost doing a disservice here to come for 30 minutes and throw this subject out there. Almost, but it's important to be here. And I wanted to say I'm so grateful to be here speaking, because I really am. This is an important message to share, and I'd like to say John gracefully invited me like weeks ago, but I pretty much had to bludgeon him half to death to get this speaking opportunity. This is an important message. I believe in it. Oh, do I believe in it? And it drives my life. Absolutely. I won't use my wife as a testimonial. Don't have to. You can have a chat to her if you want. Not to say, oh, how loving is Ben. Just how happy are your family?